falsely accused, disowned, and betrayed by my family, how the truth finally came out after 5 years and changed everything. I still can't wrap my head around how my life unraveled like this. Somehow, I've ended up completely cut off from my family, lost nearly all the friends I've ever had, and even got banned from my favorite bar in town. And let me tell you, I swear, I didn't do anything to deserve this. Oh, by the way, my name's Ben. This nightmare started about 3 months ago at my cousin Ryan's place. Ryan was set to marry this amazing woman, Emily, who had been a close friend of ours since we were kids. Growing up, the three of us were thick as thieves, so naturally, I was honored to be one of Ryan's groomsmen. The big day arrived, and I was doing my part helping guests find their seats before the ceremony started when Ryan stormed in out of nowhere. He had his best man and a small group of people trailing behind him, all of them looking tense. Ryan locked eyes with me, shouted my name in rage, and before I could even say a word, he decked me. One punch turned into another, and all the while, he was screaming, "How could you? I know what you did." It felt like forever before the best man and a few others managed to pull him off me. Meanwhile, I was stunned and totally clueless about what had just happened. They shuffled me out of the room, with me asking over and over, "What's going on? What did I do?" The next stop was the doctor's office. My lip was split, my nose was gushing blood, and my left eye was swelling up fast. As the doctor patched me up, they asked if I wanted to press charges. But honestly, all I cared about was figuring out why Ryan went ballistic on me in the first place. While I was sitting in the doctor's office, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. It read, "The wedding's cancelled. You've got until the end of today to pick up all your stuff from our house." Now, I haven't lived with my parents in a while, but I still had some things stored there, so this was like a punch in the gut on top of the ones I'd just taken. I headed straight to my dad's house, hoping someone there could tell me what the hell was going on. When I walked in, the atmosphere was icy. My parents and siblings were there, all glaring at me like I was some kind of criminal. That's when I found out what I was being accused of, having an affair with Emily, Ryan's fiancée. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I denied it immediately, but they didn't even want to listen. My brother just grabbed a bag with some of my things, tossed it at my feet, and told me to get out. Then he added, "Don't come back." I was floored. I mean, I knew I was being accused of something terrible, but I had no idea what started it all. I tried reaching out to Ryan to get some answers, but he'd already blocked me. Every time I called a family member, it was either straight to voicemail or a one-sided shouting match before they hung up on me. Finally, I decided to call Emily. That first conversation was a disaster. We both started yelling, each blaming the other for the mess our lives had become. But as we kept talking, we realized something wasn't adding up. It became clear that we were both caught in the same trap, though neither of us knew how or why. To avoid making the situation worse, we decided not to meet in person. Instead, we stuck to texting and emailing to piece things together. But no matter what we tried, we hit a brick wall. Everyone kept insisting we'd been unfaithful, but when we asked for proof, all we got was silence. The one time I managed to get a word in with Ryan, he told me he'd believe me only if I could prove I hadn't slept with Emily. I stared at him, completely dumbfounded, and said, "How exactly do you expect me to prove something I didn't do?" From there, everything spiraled out of control. My family cut me off completely, my friends turned their backs on me, and even the owners of my favorite cafes and bars started refusing to serve me. Apparently, Ryan had connections everywhere, and he wasn't shy about using them. Emily was going through something just as awful, if not worse. After Ryan moved out of her apartment, her family disowned her too, and her friends vanished. To top it off, her co-workers began making her life at work miserable. At this point, I'd had enough. I told Emily I was packing up and leaving town, and she said she was planning to do the same. We agreed it was better to go our separate ways, so now we're both heading to different states, hoping for a fresh start. It's been 5 years since the last time I had a real conversation with my family. 5 long years since my cousin Ryan's wedding that never was. Back then, I was accused of having an affair with Emily, Ryan's fiancée. The accusations were completely untrue, but it didn't matter. Ryan attacked me in front of everyone, the wedding was called off, and my entire family turned their backs on me. At first, I fought to clear my name, pleading with them to see reason, but after a while, I realized it was useless. So, I left it all behind and moved away. Emily went through the same ordeal on her side. Her family believed the lies too, and like me, they cut her off. In the end, she also decided to start fresh, but we went to different states. The constant accusations and the gossip wore me down, so I decided to cut all ties with people from my old life except for Emily. She was the only one who truly understood what I was going through. We stayed in touch through social media and occasional phone calls, but that was it. For the past 3 years, I'd been in a relationship with an amazing woman named Sarah. She knows the whole story about Emily and me, every painful detail. Surprisingly, despite never meeting in person, Sarah and Emily have hit it off. They bonded over their mutual love of the Hunger Games books and even started a virtual book club together. Every other week, they hop on Zoom with wine and snacks to chat about books and life. Now, Emily's life has turned a corner. She's getting married next month, and both Sarah and I are invited. It'll be the first time I see Emily in 5 years, and honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I've got big plans of my own too. I'm going to propose to Sarah. Not during the wedding or even while we're on that trip. I'd never want to overshadow Emily's big day. But the idea of spending my life with Sarah feels more right with every passing day. So, why am I sharing all this now? Because last week, something happened that shook me to my core. A ghost from my past decided to reappear. Sarah was working from home that day, which she does now and then when she doesn't feel like dealing with the commute. Her job's flexible like that, mine, not so much. Around lunchtime, she gave me a call. Now, Sarah usually sticks to texting when I'm at work, so seeing her name pop up on my phone during the day immediately told me something was wrong. She sounded nervous as she told me what happened. After stepping out to grab lunch at our favorite shawarma spot, she came home to find a note pinned to our front door. It read, "We need to talk. I'll be back tonight." There was no name on it, but since my name's on the door, she assumed it was meant for me. The note left Sarah rattled. She locked up the house and stayed inside for the rest of the day. When she told me about it, I left work early and hurried home. That night, we stayed up late, waiting for whoever left the note to show up. And while I didn't think it was entirely necessary, I didn't say a word when Sarah grabbed a baseball bat and set it beside the couch. She was clearly on edge, and I didn't want to make it worse. But no one came. The hours ticked by, and the night passed in silence. Over the next 2 days, nothing else happened. No mysterious notes, no unexpected visitors, just an eerie, uneasy quiet. Then, on the evening of the 3rd day, our doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a man standing there. He looked worn out, like he hadn't slept in days, and there was a faint smell of alcohol on him. "Hey, Ben," he said, his voice familiar but rough around the edges. "It's been a while." The moment he spoke, I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew exactly who it was. Standing there, on my doorstep, was Ryan. I'll be honest, I didn't want to let Ryan into my home. The last time we spoke, he'd come dangerously close to throwing a beer glass at me. So, when he showed up on my doorstep out of the blue, I wasn't exactly rolling out the welcome mat. Here's how that first exchange played out. "Ryan, aren't you going to let me in?" Me, "No, I don't think that's going to happen." Ryan, "Fair enough. Look, I came to apologize. I know the truth now." Me, "Apology accepted. Goodbye." I was ready to shut the door on him right then and there. But, of course, he wasn't done. "Ryan, wait, you're not even going to let me explain?" Me, "Not really." An explanation might have helped back then, before everyone I cared about turned their backs on me. But now? What good is it going to do? Ryan, okay, fair point. But I still want to apologize to Emily. Can you give me her contact information? Me, I could, but I'm not going to. Ryan, come on, man, I just want to tell her I'm sorry. Me, I'll let her know you're trying to reach out, and if she wants to talk, she'll contact you herself. But you should stay away from her. That was it for me. I closed the door and walked away. Through the door, I heard him shout, "Unblock your mom. She wants to talk to you." I didn't respond. Instead, I headed straight to the living room, where Sarah was waiting. I told Sarah everything that had just happened, and we both agreed that the first step should be calling Emily. If anyone needed to know about Ryan's reappearance, it was her. When I called, Emily was stunned. She made it clear she didn't want Ryan getting her contact information, and I assured her I'd never give it to him. It took me a couple of days to decide what to do about my mom. In the end, I unblocked her and sent a simple message, "I hear you want to talk." A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I let it ring and replied with a text, "We're texting, not calling." Her response came quickly. "Mom, we know you talked to Ryan. We want you to come home." Me, I am home. "Mom, you know what I mean. We want to apologize and have you back in the family." Me, apology accepted. "I'm staying here." "Mom, we just want to make things right." Me, I'll think about it. Goodbye. I know that probably sounded cold, but when the people you love throw you out like garbage, it changes you. Right now, I'm not ready to let my old life interfere with the one I've built here. Sarah, Emily, her fiancé, and I are all on the same page about this. For now, nothing changes. We've agreed to keep the past firmly in the past. After Emily's wedding, we'll talk about it again, but for now, staying no contact feels like the safest choice. Emily's wedding was stunning, a day full of joy and love that she absolutely deserved after everything she'd been through. After some lengthy conversations, I made the decision to return to my hometown to meet with my family. It wasn't an easy choice, but I felt like I needed to close this chapter, one way or another. I also requested that Emily's parents and Ryan be present. There was another person I noticed at the wedding too, a bridesmaid who seemed familiar. She sat by herself most of the time, looking uneasy, but I couldn't place why she stood out until later. When I arrived at the meeting, my mom immediately moved in for a hug. I stopped her gently, keeping some distance. Before anyone could start speaking, I pulled out my phone, set it to speaker, and slid it into my shirt pocket. "Emily's on the line," I explained. "She's listening to everything, but her side is muted. If she feels like it, she'll unmute herself to speak. If she decides she's done with this conversation, she'll disconnect. That's entirely up to her." Emily's father frowned. "Why isn't she here herself?" I looked him square in the eye. "Because last week, she told me she doesn't feel safe." After what happened 5 years ago, can you blame her? Ryan didn't just punch me that day, he slapped Emily, too, without even giving her a chance to defend herself. At that, Ryan's face dropped, and a murmur of discomfort rippled through the room. But then, at long last, they started explaining what had really happened. It turns out, 2 years after the fallout, Ryan married Sally, the bridesmaid I'd seen at the wedding, the one sitting alone. Apparently, their marriage had been rocky from day one, with constant arguments. During one of those fights, about 6 months ago, Sally let something slip. She blurted out that she hadn't sabotaged Emily's relationship with Ryan just to spend their marriage hearing about her. That's when it all came out. Sally admitted to being the one who told Ryan that Emily was cheating with me. She claimed she'd seen it but couldn't provide any proof. She made the whole thing up to drive them apart. When Ryan brought this accusation to the family, everyone believed him without question. They assumed he wouldn't ruin his own wedding unless he had good reason. And just like that, they all took Sally's word as gospel. Not one of them stopped to talk to me or Emily. Not one of them gave us the chance to explain or defend ourselves. Now, with the truth out, they wanted to apologize. They wanted to make things right and welcome us back into their lives. I sat there for a moment, processing what I just heard. Then I turned to Sally. "So, let me get this straight. You wanted to be with Ryan so badly that you destroyed Emily's life to get her out of the picture. You built your short-lived happiness on lies, on breaking people who trusted you. And me? I was just collateral damage? How does it feel, knowing everything you built was on someone else's pain?" Next, I looked at Ryan. We grew up together, man. Emily, you, and me, we were practically family before we even were. But instead of coming to us, you just believed her lies and tore our lives apart. How could you? Finally, I turned to Emily's parents and my own. To you, I'll ask the same thing. You raised us. You knew who we were, or at least I thought you did. But when the first accusation was thrown, you didn't even give us the courtesy of a conversation. You didn't think we were worth the chance to defend ourselves. You just believed the worst and tossed us aside. Nobody said a word. They just sat there in silence. After a long pause, I continued. I know where I stand with all of you now. 5 years ago, you made it clear you didn't think I was worth it. Not a phone call. Not a conversation. Nothing. You showed me my place, and it's not here. As for Emily, I can't speak for her. She'll make her own decision about what happens next. If she feels your apology is good enough, she'll reach out to you. But don't hold your breath. For me, though? I'm done. I'm going back to my real home, the one I built after you all abandoned me. And while I'm glad I finally know what happened, this could have all been avoided if anyone here had used an ounce of common sense 5 years ago. Maybe then, this would still feel like home to me. With that, I walked out. Back at the hotel, I blocked their numbers again. I called Emily to make sure she hadn't missed anything important. We both agreed this was the end of the line. We'd stay no contact with everyone involved. The next morning, as I drove out of town, I felt a sense of closure. This would be the last time I ever came back here. My future wasn't behind me, it was waiting for me, back home with Sarah. I already had the ring, and it was finally time to ask her to be my wife.